Hello, everyone. Welcome back to OTD Military History. Today, we are going to be doing a kind of not wrap up, I don't know, like a check-in collection of thoughts related to the OTD Canada and Normandy project. As many of you know, I was there in April and have been working on videos on it ever since. Made all kinds, didn't get as many done as I would have liked because there's just so many things to cover related to Canada and other things in Normandy. So I thought today I would kind of go through some photos I took there. Some I've shown these before at other places, some I haven't, and I'll be sharing the majority of these with patrons and YouTube channel members later on. I just got to organize it a little bit better to show off some stuff and go through because some aren't as good. So that said, I will go through pretty much in an order as best as possible as I kind of went through, but also in terms of the chronology of the actual campaign. So this really starts with the airborne drops and then moves all the way through to the reaching of the Seine. So we're going to be hitting quite a few different areas. Some of this, again, is very well known, some of it not so much. So I'll go through any questions. Please fire away. I'll do my best to answer them as we move forward. But yeah, other than that, let's get into it. So this one I showed. Oh yeah, sorry. Before I begin, some of this I've shown in other videos, so I won't go into some detail. Some of those because you can watch the video later. It's all contained in the Canada Normandy. Canada Normandy playlist. All the videos that I've taken there related to Canada are all in there, and that's where they will all go. Some of them will be still to be made and will be put in later, and I'll speak to that more towards the end. So this here is one of the memorials to the 1st Canadian Parachute Battalion that is attached to the 6th Airborne Division that makes the jump into Normandy the night before the landings. So the Canadians, like everybody else who jumps in, is scattered due to all kinds of things. The planes getting scattered because of the anti-aircraft fire, confusion, navigational issues. However, the Canadians are able to have enough land in the area to still meet all of their objectives in Vierville, basically taking out a strong point and destroying some bridges and securing another area in the same spot. And then they fall back to Limesnel Crossroads. This is an area where they occupied pretty quickly and use it as kind of almost an outpost, observation post on the strong point that is across the road from this position today. So this is where the memorial is, because several of them were killed in this area as the artillery piece hits the house and kills a number of them. The DZ, as it was, is in behind here, which is now private property. So couldn't get in there, and this is as close as you can get, really, to the DZ. And I show some of it as well in the video related to First Camp Era that I released quite a while back. Thanks, Willie. I appreciate that. There'll be more to come, and then, we'll talk about that later. So this has already been shown. I took footage from here, all that good stuff. So this is the crossroads. So this is the position they fall back to or advance to. I guess I want to say it. They have to advance closer to Caen. This is closer to Caen than when they landed. So this is holding these important crossroads. It doesn't look like it so much today, even when you're there, because the trees have all grown up and it's a busy area and there's all these hedges and everything kind of enclosing this park, which I've discussed before. But this is where they are for a good number of while, up until end of June, or roughly to the end of June, where they get taken elsewhere, right? Because the airborne is holding that, what becomes known as the airborne bridgehead on the eastern side, the extreme eastern side of the Allied bridgehead. So they're part of this, and they're there the whole time until they get involved in the race to the Seine, just like everybody else. But they're not, they move around quite a bit. So I just again want to highlight these because, sorry, it got warm here again. It's one of the things I want to highlight. Not that the First Camp Era story isn't well known, because it is. I just wanted to highlight, like, there's some things in the story we kind of tend to tell and the things we don't. I think, despite the fact that Canada does get attention in Normandy, but not as much as some other stuff. There's quite a I don't know what word to use, narrative set pattern to what gets told and what doesn't. And it just kind of gets told that same way all over and over and over again. So this is one of the parts that gets told, and then the rest kind of gets ignored about First Campera. And they don't really get too much more attention, a little bit with the Bulge, and then towards the end of the war with Varsity onward. But they don't get a ton of attention, especially in Canada, really. So that's unfortunate. But then there's a whole complicated history with the airborne in Canada. With how the unit was disbanded in the 90s. Anyway, yeah, so I'm going to get to that because I do have something to talk about that, but that's towards the end. So if I don't mention that specifically or answer the question directly, it'll be coming towards the end. And there's a few things, but there's a big major one I do want to talk about. And yeah, that's one thing I'll do. I'll kind of talk about, did I change opinions, all that good stuff. So this is the beach. This is part of Juno. I covered this one in a video itself. This is near Corsoles, just by the Juno Beach Center. The first day I was there, because I stayed by the beach, so I got to go at various times in the day and in different parts of the week where weather changed. So this is one of the spots that was harder to get to on the other side because of the water was so high. It was high tide and there was quite a storm the day before, but also that morning it was pretty intense. So my plan was to just walk down the beach, but I couldn't do that because the beach was gone. So this is one of the bunkers that was difficult to take. It's kind of shifted now in the dunes, as these things tend to happen. But again, as I have to keep highlighting, and I find it so very strange, especially still, even after the 80th has happened, you still see people saying the Canadians didn't face anything. And that goes for the Brits too. Sometimes people say that too. The British beaches they had nothing on them, the British Canadian beaches, which is just nonsense. They talk about that a lot. I don't get it. I don't know where that comes from. I guess they just watch Saving Private Ryan and they just want to be kind of jackasses about it, but whatever. Case in point, there's these huge bunkers that were not empty. They were very much being used for defense. This is a cool one because you get to walk up it and everything like that. And this is kind of like an art installation that you can see as you come in behind. So it's really cool. There's a car park, lots of places to park. This isn't that an issue in Corsoles or Bernays or really any of those towns along the beach, along the kind of the Canadian sector here. So it's very accessible, very easy to get to if you have a car. So that's great. And these are really cool sites to see, especially if it's not so busy, which it wasn't when I was there. So again, this one is just showing the waves. They were very intense that day, as I've told before. But this one also too is an interesting spot because we kind of know the fighting that took place here. We kind of know what happened. This is where that engineering vehicle came ashore, the AVRE, the one that fell in the hole. That I also did a video on. This is where the crew falls back to after they get out. The ones who get out to survive. One is killed by the mortar shells that land in the area. So this is that same area, and again showing kind of what is going on. These plants here weren't really there at the time. These were planted more recently because they're trying to preserve the dunes, and this helps do that. So this is an interesting view to take. And I, again, didn't get much further up the beach because the waves were absolutely brutal. As you can see here, this is again going the other way. I think I've shown this photo a few times, but I walked between Corsoles and Bernays. Driving takes literally 2 minutes. Walking was about half an hour. So it wasn't too bad, and I got some cool shots. And just kind of get a sense of both of the places from a distance. But I just think this is a cool photo, and I'll probably share this one a lot more, just because the waves were intense, very, very intense that day. So this is into Bernays. This is one of the bunkers on the beach. Again, don't know where there's no defenses there. Thing comes from. These are literally viewable on Google Maps in Street View, which confuses me. This is one of the bunkers. That's a Torbrook up there. This is by the famed Canada House, which I know lots of people have been to and is very well known. And my dog has arrived. Everyone say hi to Muggins. Hey, bud. So yeah, so this again I wanted to show because it's just showing that people just don't seem to get it, and I don't understand it. But yeah, so this is again show this one a lot with the video and all that good stuff. Actually, yeah, hold on. I will go back. So just saw this question. Sorry, David. So yes, James just said yes. There is footage of the storm. Yes, I don't know if it's at the peak of the storm though. I'm not entirely sure. It's hard to say. But I mean, it's based on what I've seen that footage, because I've seen that footage a lot, because a lot of it's taken at Omaha, where the mulberry is destroyed. Some of it at Arromange as well, and it looks similar. It looked pretty similar to the intensity here. Those waves coming in was pretty intense, washing away paths, and yeah, it's absolutely wild. So this is the famed house that's in the footage of the North Shore Regiment coming ashore. Also, another myth that I don't understand is there's no houses along the beaches in Normandy, which makes no sense. I don't know where that comes from. People, even back then, like to live near the beach. I think people have always liked to live near the beach. So I don't know that one. This house is still there. It was there at the time and still is there now. So I don't get it. But yeah, it does. It gets, I mean, the beaches have changed a little bit in some pieces, man-made, and some are erosion and things like that. Yeah, it's changed quite a bit in some areas, and some areas not at all. But yeah, that was the whole thing of when to land and how to do it. If you land at high tide, you can't see any of the things that are going to get in your way, which is extremely problematic. So of course you're going to be under fire, but the landing craft aren't going to get everybody killed in one blow if they hit a Czech hedgehog with a teller mine on it or something, right? So that's a good question, Scott. A little bit. Some of them, yes. I mean, there wasn't as many houses as there is now. As far as I can tell, yes, some of them were. But to what extent is not really clear in a lot of things, because some of them, I think they just fell back. So I don't think they heavily fortified them, because some of them, and particularly here, because this is at St. Alban, were connected with trench systems and tunnels. So, it's wild that they were able to do that. So I don't think they heavily fortified them, like sandbags and things of that nature. So I think a little bit, but as far as I can tell, they would fall back and come back sometimes and all that good stuff. So I don't think they put any concrete or anything in them, but maybe just sandbags and the like. But some of them they definitely were, and they had to fight them out. Particularly some of them, they quote unquote are snipers, which gets used all the time. So you're not really sure if they actually are snipers. But they are fortified to some degree. And also there's fortifications in behind as well in some areas, particularly in Courcelles. There was a strong point, which is now at, it's just a clump of houses now, but it's where the civilian cemetery is one of them, and Courcelles, the big one, was a strong point. So it's really interesting that it's not just this main line at the beach. There's a fallback line as well. This is the Canada House up close from the sand here. Again, it didn't look like that on the day. A little different. Yeah, it's a cool place to check out. And during the summer, there's usually somebody there, and it's usually open. So this is St. Alban, which is a cool place to visit. You can see the seawall and how high it is today, and it was kind of at the time. Of course, it was covered in barbed wire as well. So this kind of gives you an idea of what it was like on the day at certain points, right? Because there's a bunker up there. That's the one with the gun in it still, which, as I don't know if I talked about this on an earlier live stream, but the gun barrel is bent, and that was from the fighting at the time. I think that was from either from a Royal Marine Centaur or from a tank from the Fort Garry Horse. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was shot at and kind of put it out of commission. But there's still troops in there, and it was, again, connected with tunnels and trenches and barbed wire. So not an easy position to take. So yeah, you can't really see it in here, but it is damaged a little bit. But it's now a memorial, and there's plaques on it. And good to see. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you can go a long time. I was there for 7 days, straight, and I missed some spots. And I was just doing Canada, really. Went to Omaha and some other places, but I barely got to everything I wanted to get to. I hit all the big ones. Yeah, it's a 50 millimeter as far as I can tell, if I remember correctly. I believe so. But yeah, it's an interesting little piece. It's still there, very well known. I barely fit in there. I got in there, not so easy. But again, there's footage of all of this other places on my channel with the playlist. You can see all this stuff later. So that's pretty much it for D-Day. Wanted to really focus in moving inland because D-Day obviously gets a ton of attention. I mean, it's pretty much all that the national media in Canada has paid attention to was D-Day, and we heard nothing else after that about the Normandy campaign, really, which is unfortunate. Yeah, so this is another video on this that didn't get so many views, unfortunately, but what can you do? It's not very well known. So this is Tombat Woods. This is an area that was a strong point inland. So this is a couple kilometers south of the beach of Courseulles. So it was used as kind of a garrison area for, I think it was a Panzer Grenadier Regiment. I can't remember off the top of my head, but German reserves to reinforce wherever. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's a. Hold on. Let me go back here. We're going to do a lot today. So I talked about this extensively in those videos as well, right? They're put in the enfilade for that exact reason, to hit the tanks from the side. Also, because if you had an opening towards the beach, that's not so good for your gun crew, right? Most of this concrete is facing the beach to protect it. And this one got hit a couple of times. So it stood up to it, and still is today, even 80 years later, with all that wind and salt water and all that stuff hitting it. So yeah, so it's an enfilade to hit, yeah, like Rob says, landing craft or whatever. Particularly like here at Saint-Aubin, which they thought might happen, is land on the flanks, right, and then come in and take the town that way, which is exactly what happened at Saint-Aubin. That's what had to happen. They tried to, some of them landed near the strong point, and it did not go well. So they had to come into the side, and it also protects that there's a main road right there too, that you could see in the photos and stuff, and in the video. So it really, really makes a difference in that regard. And that's another myth too, that all the guns are facing to the sea. No idea where that one comes from, because that's never been the case. Okay, so sorry. So this is Tombat Woods. It's one of the reserve units in behind. This was built to protect them from air raids. And there is multiple positions. Actually, they're fairly well constructed considering how late they were put in, as far as I can tell, because they're just interlocking bricks or even interlocking concrete. Can't really tell exactly, but it's just kind of protecting them. But this was hit by a bombing raid, a civilian who survived well into his almost 90s, I believe. Was working there as forced labor and remembers when this happens, and it did a huge number on the Germans in the area. The anti-aircraft did nothing. I think they got hit by, I think it was bomber command, so it would have been heavy bombers. And this is one of the, hey, what are you doing? Sorry, the dog is chewing wires. Don't do that. Yeah. There. Say hi to the people, Muggins. Say hello. So this is one of the anti-aircraft positions that was in there. Again, the video just goes into detail of what happened. But yeah, fascinating little area. It's not the easiest to get to. You can park nearby and walk through, wear good shoes. I didn't, because I was not thinking. It's a good little spot. So moving in, yes, hi dog, yes. Yes, his name is Muggins, named after a much older dog from the First World War. Okay, so we're moving further inland. Yeah, I don't know what he was doing down there. He's a strange boy. So this is Hell's Corners. So this one is fairly well known because this is where the 9th Brigade spends a good chunk of its time, pretty much just here, in and around the town, or this area, overlooking Biron, right? After the initial advances into Biron and Nazi fail, this is where they fall back to and hold on until they attack again towards Caen in July. So they're dug in here. The peoples of the town still remember them very well, and they're very well spoken of. And you go here, people thought I spoke to somebody whose parents owned the chateau. That was kind of the HQ, basically, of the brigade. So, you know, it was great to talk to them and see them and see the stuff. They had some private memorials back there, so that was really cool. But yeah, they're still well regarded in the area. So this is, again, I did a video on the Highland Light Infantry's attack into Biron, and this is that area. So that really helps if you're wanting to look at that as well. It's a cool memorial to stop in. It's got parking, which is always key when you got a big group of people, and then you can move your way into Biron, which is just up the road. Yeah, I don't go in for that. This is a very much aside. I don't go in for that culture war stuff. So if you're going to keep doing that, I'm going to block you. And that just kind of goes generally. Don't do that here. I don't allow it. I block it and I don't want to hear it. So don't do it. So yeah, so we have now moved our way into Biron, which, again, covering the video, I just wanted to give this up here so people could take a look again. Sorry, I'm just reading about taking sand from the beach for concrete. That's just such a bad idea for so many reasons. Yeah, it's not good. I don't remember the chemistry behind it, but it's bad, very, very bad. Yeah, so this was put in by the HLI, which is now been amalgamated with other ones. So it's the Royal Highland Fusiliers of Canada. So yeah, I did a whole video on that. Fascinating battle. One of the guys fighting with the HLI should have been given the Victoria Cross. Yeah, none of that. It didn't. He just mentioned dispatches because he's killed. So yeah. Oh, I didn't know there was a graphic novel about the HLI. I'm still working on another video for them. Sorry, I'm just the dog went. Maybe he got bored and left. Oh, no, he's still here. I'll have to check that out. Do you know? Well, you got the author. I'm sure I can find. Okay. Again, no culture war crap. You've been removed. Sorry. I don't go in for that anymore. It just drives me crazy. Take it elsewhere. Yeah, so I'll look that up. That's awesome. So yeah, I think that's good for the plaque. So this is the plaque in Ati, which is discussed. I discussed this in another one. On another live stream a while back about what happened there, and I'm going to do is, I'm not sure when, I'll talk about that kind of stuff at the end, but it's still, if you know what happened in this place, it's the whole town is got this, I don't know, if you've been there and you know the story, it's got this, it's feeling that something is just off. It's a lovely little town. I tried to put that out of my mind for a moment. I mean, it's pretty hard, but it's a lovely little place. The bakery was closed. I'm sure that would have helped, but a lovely little place now. But I mean, just the amount of murder that takes place in Ati is just mind-boggling. But yeah, this was the plaque. They're getting it all cleaned up and ready because I was there in April, right? And everything was getting cleaned up and ready for June. So this is the best I could get of it. So anyway, so we're moving along in a good clip. Normandy is beautiful. I mean, there are some areas that are just literally were like breathtaking. Maybe I'll talk about those later, but Swiss Normandy is, literally, I had to stop the car and just take it in. It was wild because I got lost. Glad I did. Anyway, so this is from Woody's van, his trusty steed here. We were kind of going around trying to get different views from different places related to Brettville. So this is showing the spire of the church in Brettville. Again, that's my next big video that I'm going to do when I'm going to really get into the details, and it's going to take some time. But this battle is so intense and bigger than you think. So it's wild to get it all in these details. So I just wanted to do some quick showing here. It's also the area where the first Hussars take out a bunch of Panthers in one blow. Yeah, I saw him twice while I was there. I mean, I was pretty busy, and he's always busy. When we went around one day, we did pretty much this battle. So we did Brettville, which we're going to look at closer. Norrie, we did Le Mesnil-Patrie, Puteaux, and then he took me to a few spots he likes to show people. Yeah, so that was great. And then I went to his famous pub there for a night with him and Colin and a bunch of other people that were in town. That was great. Hope I get to go back. But yeah, it was great to go around and see Woody and taken these sites with him because his knowledge is just wild. And he'll be included in some of the videos. I just haven't got to them, and because I want to do them right with Woody in them. So it's going to take some time. So that's working our way into Bretteville. This is from the other side. So this is the side where that 12th SS attack is coming in. So there are anti-tank guns put in place here. You may read about that. You may read about that a little bit. This is that area, and you can, I think, see why, because there's some high ground here. So they kind of try to hit them here. I mean, they only have a few, right? They don't have many that are pulled with 6-pounders that are pulled with universal carriers. So they don't have, heavy stuff. But they do a number on them before they even get into town, because this is really the only way in for heavy tanks. Still really the only way in today. So Rowe is in behind, and we'll get there in a second. That's the church in Bretteville. Again. Stop that. That's the church in Bretteville. Sorry, the dog was doing something weird. So yeah, this is what the Germans would have seen coming in, and that's it there now. Apparently, it's perpetually being renovated. It was there being renovated when I was there in 2016, and again in 2024. It's always under work, I guess. Even though it was redone after the war because it took a wallop. But yeah, it's a great marker for seeing the area for sure. And this is where the fighting took place, right? This is roughly where that Panther is taken out, or where it ends up, I guess, is the best way to say it. Because they're dug in here with Piots, and guys are in behind this fence with Brens, right? And troops throughout, and the houses and everything, and that straight up there where it says pharmacy. That's the main intersection still today pretty much, and at the time. So that was an important spot. Buddy, just go lay down, man. You've had lots of activity today. So yeah, Bretteville's a cool one, and I'm going to do as in-depth as I can on that. I've got some stuff. Sorry, let me go back here. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, Muggins, what's your problem, buddy? Go downstairs. No, actually, it wasn't. There were some Germans in there. They were, using it as an OP, and the Canadians didn't know they were in there, so they had to hide in there for days. It just got hit a bunch in the fighting. You can literally see the progression of the destruction in the photos and the footage, because at first it's not so bad. And then it gets really, really bad later on, because this is roughly where the fighting, the line settles, right? So it's going to take a lot of walloping. Give Buckins his own show. Yeah, you might like that, actually. But, buddy, go lay down. Huh? Go lay down. He's a needy guy. So, yeah, my wife's out of the house, so he wants attention. So this is Bretteville. So, yeah, it's great to go. Yeah, I mean, going to Normandy is always a good time. Muggins, what's wrong, bud? Yeah, you want to play? Okay, so for those who might know the story of Bretteville, maybe not. He's all energy all the time. He's either wanting to play or he's asleep. There's really no in between. He's still got the puppy energy going. Yeah. He's crazy. Anyway, so this is the position that's known as Cartonville Farm. It wasn't actually a farm, but that's what it's called. That's what they called it at the time. So, you're fine. So this is where one of the companies of D Company of the Regina. It's a city in Saskatchewan. People think I'm mispronouncing it. I am not. Held out against multiple attacks. They almost got overrun. But yeah, it's wild, the fighting there, and I'm going to cover that one in detail as well. I just wanted to show this memorial because it doesn't get shown a ton. I'm sure people know what this spot is. It's shown non-stop, particularly online. And then take a guess. I'm sure you could figure it out based on the area we've been talking about and where this is. I'm sure it's very well known. I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't want to talk about those guys more than I have to. I didn't change out the picture. Sorry, I found a better picture of this later. Yes, they, as far as we could tell, I'll go back. Muggins, hey bud. We're not sure. So I was here with Woody. Sorry about the 6-inch shells. We're not sure where they come from or what's the story here, because they redid or cleaned up and put in a new. Hey, relax, man. They put in a new memorial at Bretville with a soldier, right, for the Reginas. Woody seems to think these shells were there previously. They were obviously not there anymore. But yeah, this is they're there now. So we're not sure. There's no markings on them, nothing at all. Just the fuse markings. We're not sure whose they are, where they come from. There, he finally moved on. He got bored and left. Yes, this is the auto funk spot. Yes. I thought I had a better photo, but I must have not put it in. I don't think it's a fireplace, James. No, I have no idea what that thing is, but who knows? So this is something that I wanted to talk about because this is one of the things I thought about quite a bit when I was there, and doesn't get discussed too much. Is some of the bigger rivers get discussed, right? The Mew doesn't get discussed at all, which is interesting. I think I've told this story before, but when I reviewed Mark Milner's book, Stopping the Panzers, I put it in there talking about how he's talking about how the valley is fought over and how it limits the German movements, particularly with the heavy armor. People thought I was making it up. The river, it's still there. It still causes an issue for transportation today. It's not big by any means, but it still has an impact on the battle and how things develop. And this is why the 12th SS attack has to go in the way it does, is because of the Mew. So I just kind of wanted to take that photo. I took a better one. I forgot to include it in here, though. I was a bit rushed at the end before getting ready. So I just want to include that in there to keep thinking about that and how these natural areas have an effect on the battle. So that's one thing I kind of, think about there. Is there a German military simmer? Yeah, there's a bunch of both, a ton. There's a ton of Commonwealth war graves. One American, one massive American one. I think the next closest one is in Brittany, and there's a couple of German ones. So there's so many streams. That's right. They're called rivers in France. We really call them streams in North America. Most of them don't even get named, which is interesting. Or in France, I think, because I don't know if it's longer. They all have names. Everything's got a name. Those little streams are more difficult than they look on the map. That's for sure. And the Mew is definitely one of them. That's one thing I want to keep in mind is the ground. That is something I already knew, but Normandy in particular, if you don't know the ground, it's harder to understand that. So this is the plaque in Puteaux. You can take a quick look there. It's showing how this goes, right? They take the town, they get pushed back, and that being the Winnipegs, and then they get support from the Canscots to take it back. It's quite a seesaw battle, and one, again, deserving a very detailed video that I haven't been able to do, but I will. Yes, creeks, or we call them creeks too. Creeks, streams, they usually don't get named beyond that. Or the runs, like Bull Run. Yeah, they all have all kinds of crazy names, but they're not often named, at least in my part of the world. So this is the fighting at Puteaux, which is very intense. And I will get into that when I can. So this is just quick, the memorial of Puteaux. A good little spot to stop in and look. So this is Norrie. So this one's an interesting one because this is all part of that same fight, right? It's part of the 7th Brigade Fortress, as it's called, right? To blunt the German armored counterattacks, which it does very successfully, right? It breaks apart any ability of the Germans to come anywhere near the beaches with their armor, which is the 12th SS is the armor reserve, right? They stonewall them completely. So anyway, this is the church in Norrie, which took, again, a wallop. They didn't fix it as it was, and it's kind of became, I don't know, necessarily source of pride, but like an identity thing. Like Norrie's church looks different now; it's flat. Like you can see it from quite a distance too, and I have it in some of the footage. But it's so interesting to see all these different ones and steeples and stuff in France, and then Norrie's just like flat. It sticks out though. It's definitely how it's Norrie, and how it sticks out when you're looking at stuff. You'll know. It's a cool little town to visit too, to get an understanding of how the ground is laid out as well. Very flat. Sorry, 1 second here. I don't know what happened. I think I just doubled up everything. Yeah, sorry about that. 1 second. Technical difficulties. Give me a second. So this is an interesting one. So this is outside. My slides got messed up, but this one is in just outside Rowe. So this talks about particularly what happens to a family there. So this is part of that attack towards Bretteville. So I knew this had happened. I wasn't sure there was anything going to be there, but when I got there, I wasn't expecting to find anything, and it did. And it's in 3 languages, which is great. You don't often see that. You usually just see French and English. Oh, it's just me talking. Yep. My bad. Here's a plaque. So this is a plaque about the attack from the 12th SS towards Bretteville. This is before, right, where some of those anti-tank guns were set up. What do you mean? How do you flip screens? What do you mean? Like it mirrored? I'm not sure what you mean. Let me know. Yeah, so it's an interesting little spot to take in and quiet and everything like that. And I'll get into more detail in this area as we move forward. But it was good to see 3 languages, but also a spot like this that doesn't get a ton of attention marked. Also, something about this, which is interesting, is you see an M10. There's a Panzer IV and a Churchill. So this spot apparently is where Otto Funk supposedly took out they say Allied tank. It would have been a Canadian, just with machine gun fire from an MG42. I have no idea what he's talking about. That's one of the things I want to dig into. One of those another controversial things. Dig into that because that doesn't square with anything I know in the area. No, this photo, if this is the one you're talking about on screen now, that's a Panzer IV and a Churchill. I don't know. That's about it. Yeah, so it's complicated, and I have to do a lot of digging on this, but stay tuned. So this is another one that I haven't got to. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know if I believe that story or not. I mean, with all the propaganda swirling around the 12th SS, I don't really believe many of these claims. But yeah, so anyway, this is really the marking event that ends that first push, pretty much the entire 21st Army group. But it's at round all the time, right? They'll start to kind of lose steam, but this is one for sure. Is La Misnelle Patrie. So this is the Queen's Own Rifles and the 1st Hussars go in, try to take the town really in a nonchalant kind of manner. And it doesn't go well. High casualties. They get hit really, really hard by the 12th SS, who finally dug in and actually holding onto a position instead of just barreling forward. So this is kind of the marker in the town itself. But yeah, it's listing all the names of those who died. Yeah, it's a lot of KIA, like a lot for it, and that's why I want to again do it properly, because I want to get into these details. And yeah, it was absolutely wild. Oh, that is yes, right. Yeah, Woody told me about that. Yeah, I can only imagine what that would have looked like. I mean, Charlie Martin came through because he was part of, right? He's famously known for his book, but he was, known for the D-Day stuff. But he talks about, because he wasn't part of the attack itself, but he comes in later and he finds some of the Canadians that were murdered, who had their hands bound, or not necessarily. I don't know if they were bound at the time, but had bullet holes in the back of their heads in all the same positions. So I don't think that's a coincidence. So yeah, he comes through because they abandoned the town afterwards. So they just gave the Canadians an extremely, extremely bloody nose and a lot of casualties. So yeah, it's wild. But yeah, this is another one I wanted to do, but at the time around the battle, I just ran out of time in June. It was very busy. But lots going on at this one, and it's very intense. And there's just the little plaque. I think that was there originally. I'm not entirely sure, but hold on. I'll just put it on here so you can take a look. But this is very indicative of things you see in Normandy, is plaques like this talking about the people. It's very cool to see. So cover this in detail. I'm sure a lot of you already know what this is. This is the memorial at the Abbaye d'Ardennes. I have a whole video on this. I have a whole live stream on the SS murders in Normandy. And we'll be going into detail, heavy detail, with what happened here and the other murders. So yeah, don't want to spend too on that, but this is the memorial there. And this is the list of all of those that were murdered that we know of at the time. Yeah, sorry everybody, I'm on a delay, so I see all your comments later. But yes, Queen's Own Rifles is a Toronto unit, so that's the biggest city in the country, and a lot of old money is still attached to that unit, so that they're pretty good at promoting themselves. They're a reserve unit now, but yeah, they are one of the first really, and they're around a long time and still go strong today. But yeah, this is the list of the names, and I've covered this stuff in the past. So just this one, I think I've showed this photo before, but I do want to just quickly show it again, because this is now owned by, I think it's like a cultural institution, I think is what they call themselves. I'm not sure how it translates exactly, but like a language institute. So that's who owns the Abbaye now. But a lot of the inside is untouched, like literally in the courtyard and stuff. This is where those events you hear about took place, and the Canadians were led through here, because the garden is on the other side of this. Those trees up there are in the garden, and on the outside of the wall, those who are murdered are led out this door and shot. And this is the water area that is discussed in a lot of the testimony, particularly from what's his name, Jessic, who's testifies to the murders. This features prominently in his story. So that's why I wanted to include this in here, so you get a kind of a mind's eye idea of what it's like at the Abbaye. And if it's during business hours, you can go there. I'm sure you can make an appointment, and they'll show you around even. But yeah, I just knocked on the door and they let me in, so that was very lucky. Okay, so again, this is another one I've covered as well. This is Carpiquet. This is Carpiquet Airport today. It's like the airport for Caen, basically. It's not a big place, not a lot of flights there, but this is one of the defenses that was put in place. I showed this on Woody's channel when I appeared there talking about Operation Windsor, which is the initial operation to try and take it. So this is just one of the concrete defenses. This also, I think I showed, this is the memorial in Carpiquet itself, which is now part of Caen. It's just, again, not showing too much. So I wanted to show that because Caen gets the attention, I think rightfully so in a lot of ways, but I wanted to make sure that this is highlighted. And this is the main intersection in Carpiquet, which comes up in some of the accounts, right? Because they have to fight their way through the town. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to go to the museum, but I've heard good things. So that's good to know. Maybe next time, if there is a next time. We'll see. Yeah, so I just wanted to show that because you don't typically get to see Carpiquet other than really the airport. So moving, Carpiquet is still used today. It was not used at the time because it was well within range of Allied guns. Yeah, a lot of road signs. Yeah, it's sometimes confusing. It's like a walk for walking, though, for pedestrians. You can know what things are in what part of town, kind of, because it's the main section. There's a lot of people walking around, but I find that typical for France. There's a lot of signs and a lot going on the roads. But yeah, so moving our way into the big hubbub city that is Caen. This is the memorial for the Canadians that came in to the city. Okay, sorry, just checking the message. Yeah, so this is about how the Canadians came in. I was not in Caen for very long. It was a weekday and I was crazy busy. But this is one of the memorials. That's the cathedral, right? Most of Caen is smashed, so it is obviously been rebuilt, and this is that part of town. And this is just the other side because I kind of parked. This is the memorials in behind me here as I'm taking these photos. I didn't really do much walking around in Caen because there's not much to see, right? It's changed so much. Yeah, Carpiquet was definitely in the range of the monitors and the battleships because I've heard it now multiple counts. Some of the troops could see tanks being thrown in the air by the naval gunfire, which is wild if you think about it. A Panther or even a Panzer IV being thrown in the air like a toy, during Operation Windsor is absolutely wild. That's not something that you hear, Kurt Meyer talking about in too much. I think he does mention it in his memoir, right? Because he talks about Carpiquet very briefly. But I don't know if he mentions it in there, but Canadian troops have given like oral histories and stuff, have said they saw this. It's wild. Yeah, so this is Caen. This is what all the hubbub was about. I didn't, again, spend too much time there. There was tons of fighting on the east side of town. And what is it now? It was industrialized at the time. It was also heavily industrialized today. And they're more so, even though the guidebooks say don't even bother because it's so changed and it's so inaccessible. So it's how things go. But yeah, anyway, so that's Caen. Not much to see in terms of battlefield, really. This is moving out of Caen now, so this is south of the city technically, because this is Fleury-sur-Orne, which is, I believe, its own town. I believe might be part of Caen now. Anyway, so as is typical in this part of France, especially, is streets named after Canadian units, Canadian soldiers, generals, whatever. Yeah, it's a pretty common sight. Yeah, so that's something that is endlessly discussed about Normandy. Is if Rommel had been there at literally the time, I don't know, the shells started falling, it would have made some difference. Literally, it wouldn't have made any difference, I don't think, because of how the communication worked anyway. But if they had got too close, they would have got blown to bits, because it's exactly what happened at Salerno. They said the tanks got within sight of the beaches, and then once that happened, they called down the naval artillery, the naval guns, and it did a number on them. So yeah, if they had parked the 12th SS right off the beach, they just would have been blown to bits. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the steel works. I mean, there's lots of some, I don't know about footage, but there's photos, aerial photos of that at the time, and it's wild that you can see. Tons of accounts too. So it's one of those things we'll have to like rebuild, when you're talking about it, because the ground today doesn't really help you too much, because it's a very busy area that I had to go through a bunch. Yeah, so this is just a board at Fleury-sur-Orne, which is interesting, because it's in front of a school, and there's memorials, some quick ones on the wall. Some little ones to some soldiers on the wall of the school. So I just stopped and took a picture of this board because Fleury is liberated earlier than those other towns, right, that are around Barrier Ridge, that I, again, have done quite a few videos on already and talking about those. But it's pretty cool to get a look at this. But yeah, especially with the Mazes coming through, right, a unit based out of Montreal. Would have been able to communicate with the French, and also this is 2nd Division coming online. So yeah, he's so this is also kind of a marker for the progression of the campaign. Is 2nd Division coming in and joining in with 3rd Division and the 2nd Armored Brigade. So again, another unit is the Black Watch, which we've talked about. Those are, the plaques and stuff. They're everywhere. I got so many photos. They're in every town, pretty much. Pretty much every town I went to has one. The major ones, anyway. Sorry, Tara. I'll get to your comment there in a second. Yes, the blue poles are for flags. They just take them down in the off season, quote unquote, because I was there in April and the weather, as you saw those photos of the beach, can be a little rough. And some of the days inland and some of the photo videos, unfortunately, it was so windy it ruined the footage or ruined the audio. So that's why they take stuff down. It's like how we do that. We do that here, right, for winter. Same sort of idea. So yeah, so this is EAF, which is where the Black Watch come in. Again, connected to Operation Spring and Very Ridge. So this is interesting because this comes up a lot because the Regiment de la Chaudière out of Eastern Quebec is the first French Canadian unit to land in Normandy, the only one on D-Day. And the people are confused because they're in British uniforms and they show up in Normandy speaking an old, almost, again, because it would be because they had been separated for hundreds of years at this point, the old Norman dialect. So, I mean, it's not an exact same thing, but, it'd be like foreign troops in a foreign uniform showing up and speaking in an accent if they landed in Cornwall or something, speaking like Victorian or like Shakespearean times or something. It'd be very confusing. They were very confused of what was happening. And then, of course, they apparently got along. Other people make these weird claims that they hated each other. I don't know where that even comes from, but I've never seen that. Apparently they got along pretty well. I mean, the language thing makes sense to me. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just reading to make sure. Parisians think everybody is weird about everything else. So, yeah. So anyway, so this is EAF, a small little town today. Still, it's a cool little town though. It's quiet. So this is another. Can't remember the other day of the live streams. Can't remember who said it, but Canada has so many controversies for such a small country. That's true. And this is another one, right? This is Very Ridge. This is like the peak almost of the ridge. This is looking towards the area where the attack came from, right? Because this is Mace or Orne that you're looking at in the left. I said this before and in the videos and stuff, so I won't spend too much time on it. They're all more or less connected. May's a little bit on its own. At the time they weren't, right? And then that makes it more difficult in different ways of fighting through here. So it's another controversy and will be discussed forever. So this is, again, you can see in the footage, and it's amazing to see all this stuff. So this is, again, the ridge, looking back towards point 67, which is off there in the distance, and I have video of that as well. More of it, again, looking back towards the height of the ridge. That was the objective, was on the other side of this ridge, way back here, and most of the Black Watch never make it. They basically, as far as we know, reach the peak, and that's about as far as they get. So, sorry. Yeah, a little bit. 16th century dialect with some First Nations and then some English thrown in there. Not so much like the Franglais of today, but some thrown in there with the Quebecois and French Canadians in general. But yeah, a lot of Algonquin words work their way into North American English and English in general. Like moose, and I think even canoe is Algonquin, if I'm not mistaken. Like Quebec is an Algonquin word. It's not a French word. It's an Algonquin word. It means where the river narrows, because that's literally what Quebec is where the St. Lawrence narrows. Anyway, sorry, I saw a question here. Memorial items at various plaques. Sometimes, I mean, not when I was there. I didn't see too much. There were some old wreaths from ceremonies, but nothing major. Nothing you see like at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial or anything like that, or like cemeteries. See that at cemeteries though. Yeah, lots. So again, I'm not sure. Again, the story, I couldn't find too many details about this, but I think most of this church was destroyed during the fighting, because this is the village, basically. It's still a village, really. is yes, Canada is a native word, it's an Algonquin word as well. Bit of a rabbit hole, but our horse is still raised in Normandy. I didn't see any horse farms. I saw horses, but not any horse farms. Does that make sense? A lot of cattle, tons of cows, tons. They're everywhere. And some sheep, but not too many horses. I could be wrong. I wasn't in every part of Normandy, but the parts I was in, I didn't see anything like that. So yeah, so this is a very area itself. One of the few, and I talk about this in the video, that you can also check out afterwards, is one of the successes of spring is here because of the Hamilton, Royal Hamilton Light Infantry, the Rileys, holding this position, which is a crazy story, but which again I can do I'll have to do in the future. So this is another part of the ridge, also discussed in a video. This is looking up the ridge a little bit. You can see the difference there in elevation. This is also where Operation Goodwood is fought over in this area as well. So it's a bit of a lot going on in these areas. Talking about this stuff in all the videos and all that better stuff. But this is a tough fight again, a lot of seesaw back and forth in this area. But again, just want to show that it is a ridge and it does have changes in elevation depending on where you're in it. Because sometimes if you come, particularly from, well, wherever this white car is heading, if you come from that direction, it's really hard to tell that you're on a ridge at all. Very difficult to know what you're you just think this is a bit of a rise and that's it. You have to keep going to see really the difference. Again, did a video on this one. Yeah, sorry. The cows are in every memoir. Yeah, it's just so much destruction of the livelihoods of these people at the time from all the fighting. A lot of difficulties there because of that. But a lot of them were killed and eaten right away. And also some people do resort to it later on because they don't have food. But they did more or less take fairly good care of the civilians because, right, as we know, the logistics of this thing were very well planned out. And that was part of it. So, yeah. And this is another famous spot. Did a whole video on it. I thought it would do better than it did. It hasn't done too well, so be that as it may. But another famous spot for those SS fanboys, and that building up in the distance. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. So this is moving along nice and quickly here. Well, ish. This is what I like to call Operation Totalized Territory. So this is the Con-Falaise Highway. It's now a 4-lane highway today. It's very busy. But this is looking towards Falaise. So this is the direction towards Falaise. Then you can see kind of the land they're working with here. Some rises and, gentle rises, some not so much because that's a river valley off to the right, which I discuss in all the videos and stuff about this area. So you get a good shot here from this overpass. And this is looking back towards Con, right, where the advance is coming from. And where the Canadian Cemetery is today, is up on this area, further up the road. But yeah, that's Conway in the distance. And again, another famous field. Yeah. Yeah, I've talked about this many times, but this idea of bocage for all of Normandy is just not true. This is tank country. And when good tank country, I think Dave said it, Dave Patterson, good tank country makes good anti-tank country. So that's what this is. This is intensely... Oh, sorry, I missed your question there, David. Yes, this is the axis of advance for Totalize. So you have the advance coming through here, right? You have the British and support are basically over here. This is where the Poles come through as well later. And the Canadians are advancing on this side, more or less. This is where the Sherbrooks are coming through. And they set up here because they're waiting for the second round for the bombing to go ahead. Yeah. And temporary airfield country as well. So no, this area has never had bocage, as far as I know. Bits and pieces, but this area of Normandy was not bocage. It wasn't done in that way. It's just not how the agriculture developed. This was been sugar beets and wheat and all of that type of stuff for a very long time. Other parts, yes, but this part of Normandy, not really. It's always been wide open. So say the accounts even way back when. So this has not been bocaged at all, really. Yeah, Brittany's got a ton of bocage. Yeah, corn, wheat, wide open farms, basically. So this is another one I want to talk about. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are accessible in Normandy, and a lot of things you may read about, and spots you can see from, even if you can't go to, them exactly, you can stop at a spot and look at them and all that stuff. This is one of the spots that features in all of the narratives, basically, because this is one of the quarries off the main Conflace Highway that's used as a defense by the Germans, but also as kind of an HQ later on by 1st Canadian Army. It's still an active quarry today. I was not expecting that. I checked the map. I didn't really see anything. But this is the best I could do. I didn't want to get too close, right? Because of the fence in and don't want to get arrested. But yeah, it's called something like that, the Con Plateau or something like that. It's super flat. Doesn't really start to change until Falaise, really. And we'll get there in a sec. And yes, I visited Woody. I talked about that earlier in the stream. Yes, definitely a breadbasket. Still is in a lot of ways. Still a lot of crops there. It's good to see, actually. It's really cool. Anyway, so yeah, you can't get to see everything. That's one of the points I wanted to make. Ignore my sock on the dash. It was soaked. So this is another area. Yes, good catch, David K. That is a dirty sock on my dashboard. I went to... I was by myself, so it didn't really matter. That's a rental car. So whatever. They charged me a lot for stupid things. So I don't really care. I went to the Bretteville-sur-Laise cemetery first thing that morning. And the dew, because I was there pretty early, like super early, like 7:30 or something like that. And the dew just did a number on my socks because I was there for a good while. So I took them off and tried to dry them out. Yeah, it was not as successful as I would have liked in the drying out, but you live and learn, right? Anyway, so this is Quesnay Woods. This is where Total Eyes basically comes to a halt because of this, because this is an advance of 8th Brigade, particularly the Queen's Own's. All of them really are involved. All the infantry battalions of the 8th, Queen's Own, the Chaudière, and North Shore, New Brunswick, are involved in this, and not really with any armored support. Not much, anyway, because of the way the advance had gone earlier. So this is really, excuse me, an area that doesn't get discussed much. And one I will be looking at. It won't do well probably on YouTube, but I'm still going to do it because you can see it's still a wood today. It's a thick wood. This is basically where the attack comes in. And you can read about this. It's covered in like official histories and things of that nature. Excuse me. So you can read about this, but it doesn't get much attention later on. It's just quickly discussed. This is where it ends because the Germans are still holding this position. And this is it. They're held up in the woods over here. So yeah, this is just kind of like a precursor to what I will be doing. And this is further up. The Germans are in here, basically, dug in and waiting. And they take a lot of casualties, 8th Brigade. Yeah, hold on, go back here for a second. That's a good point. So the average soldier, they don't interact really, right, much of it all during the war, right? It's more of a up in command, and I don't think that has anything to do with the regional nature of the country. I think that's all to do with personality. Some, brigadiers get along fine, some not so much, for all kinds of reasons. So I don't really think regionalism comes to play because you have armored units, attached to various infantry units from all over. That plays onto it as well, and there's no major issues in that way that I've heard of anyway. Once you're into it, as they say, that kind of stuff melts away. Yeah, it does, David. You're right. It does look like, because I've been there a lot myself, actually, down the good old I-75. It does look a lot like the Kentucky-Tennessee border area, very heavily wooded as well in certain points, much like that. Yeah, very conducive to ambushes, particularly with anti-tank guns, because that's literally what the Germans did and why this advance was so difficult. They were worried about armored counterattacks, yes, hence with all the bombing, but it's those anti-tank guns that can be moved. It's interesting. So this is a famous spot indirectly. This is Hill 195. This is what Worthington Force was supposed to take. They never get there, famously, right? They go to the wrong spot. This is taken later on. So this is taken on the night of 10th, 11th of August, right? The Worthington Force is supposed to get there on the 9th. They go the wrong side of the highway. And again, I have a video on this. And I will do this one as well, because this is one of those famous night attacks where the Argylls go through basically in a single file line, complete silence in the dark, and are able to slip through the German line, basically, or the outer posts anyway, and take this position and hold it. They get hit hard, but they hold, and they hold well, right? They're able to stop them. The counterattacks. It's a crazy story, and I will do that one justice at some point. But this is the spot. This is where Worthington's Force was, again, supposed to be. They never make it here. So the Argylls take it on later from 4th Armored. They're one of the infantry units in 4th Armored Division. So yeah, this is an intense one. And they're later supported by the South Albertas, one of the squadrons of the South Albertas, which is technically a recce unit, but are equipped with Shermans. Again, complicated going on there too. But yeah, this is it. This is what they were supposed to be holding. Again, like I said in the video, it looks different than 140, Hill 140, but they would have no idea. It's not like any of them would have been there. But yeah, this is what it looks like. Not as much as a little bit of a smaller, gentler slope than it was at 140, but yeah, and the German counterattacks are coming at this position. And this is looking back towards where the attack is coming from. And another shot. That's some sort of broadcasting building in the background, as far as I can tell from the maps. But yeah, this is where the attack comes from. And this is where they dig in all around those fields. This one and the one you just saw. Yes. Sorry, I just answered this question real quickly. Yes, there is some that are funded by the federal government. Those are few and far between. Most of them are privately done or by other organizations, nonprofit organizations here in Canada. Yeah, the federal government doesn't do too many. There's a federal government one at Juno Beach, 2 I think now. But the rest are unit associations or nonprofits nowadays mostly. That do this kind of thing, like the Battlefields Foundation and all that good stuff. And then some efforts of the people in France, which is good. No, not as far as I know. No Cromwells. Stuarts mostly are used for the Canadians. They don't, as far as I know, no Cromwells. Yeah. Okay, so another thing that has to be discussed when talking about really any part of Normandy is it's not just one country, right? First Canadian Army is a multinational army. I've said that many times. It's Canadians, Poles, this is the Polish cemetery. Canadians, Poles, Brits, Americans at some point are in First Canadian Army, Czechoslovaks, Belgians. They got pretty much everybody's in First Canadian Army at one point or another. But this is the Polish cemetery in Normandy. It is definitely worth checking out if you're in the area. It's not too far from the Canadian one at Bretteville. Again, I'll probably do a video on this, but it'll probably be for supporters only because I just don't think it'll do well. We'll see. Such a sad story, right? For all kinds of reasons, obviously, for all those who died. But then you get the sense of, right, those who survived couldn't go home. And that comes across here, right? Of who funds this, who took care of it, and all that stuff. It's sad for so many reasons, but it's a striking place to visit, and definitely worth a stop. And it's definitely worth going out of your way to go here and to take it in. And this is the main area of the cemetery, and there's some plaques and stuff up there. I shared photos for supporters as well a while back on Patreon and YouTube. But yeah, it's a fascinating place, a very Sorrow place, and all that. So this is an area that doesn't get discussed all that much really at all. So we've kind of moved into Operation Tractable here. So this is like, Totalize 2, basically, where they kind of shift the advance, broaden the fronts a little bit. It's goes more successfully. It's done better. This is just an interesting photo. You couldn't see here so well. I'll try to get it better. It's like I'll do it before and after. That's a Canadian tank stuck in the ditch. Well, not a ditch, it's a river. Shouldn't call it a ditch. This is a Liaison River, I believe, outside the town of Verve. Anyway, you can read it there. It's all on there. It's a nice little town now. But it's quite the barrier right again. There's a lot of those, and discussed before. These like smaller rivers are effective tank barriers, and this was no different. This one kind of slowed up the advance. It went off the bridge and into the river. I don't think anybody got killed, but yeah, I think Mike Bechtold put this one together. So yeah, so this is a church. This is the spot where the tank got stuck. I got lots of footage here. I didn't take too many photos here, so I took more footage. But yeah, you can. At the time, it was quite a barrier and caused some issues. And this is the church. It has some battle damage on it, as you can see there. A little bit of battle damage there. But yeah, definitely good idea. It gives you a good idea of. Sorry, 1 second here. Of very high banks, and this one's actually kind of a sloping bank in comparison. This one's actually not too bad. I think they've done some work to it since then, because the photos don't quite line up. That photo you can see on the board doesn't quite line up. Yeah, it doesn't quite line up anymore. Yeah, I could do that. I could do a map. I shared that before I left, giving a rough idea of the areas I'd hit, but I could definitely try to do that when I get some time to sit down and plot the actual places I didn't go. It's a lot. There's a lot of places. I went to a lot of places, and they were very busy days. Kind of blended together now in my head. I don't remember where I went on what day. But yeah, it's a nice little place too. These little Norman villages are beautiful. But yeah, it definitely took some walloping during Tractable. Sorry, this photo's blurry. I know it is, but it's the only one I got of the sign of a photo. I took footage of it. So this is an interesting place. So this is Damlinville. Doesn't get discussed much. So this is, again, 4th Armored coming through here. This is one of the areas of Tractable where they fail, actually, quite badly, really. This is the river that holds them up again, and it's not very big, but the Germans hold up here. So this up here, you can see it here, and I have good footage of it. This is why this is kind of like a teaser. This is a railway embankment up here. So the Germans are dug in along on the reverse, I believe. And if you were to keep going, there's high ground on the other side. So this is where one of the 4th Armored attacks actually fails. They don't get to go. They don't take their objective. All the other, mostly the objectives of Tractable are all successful, even with the bombing, even with the misbombing. They still do fairly well. This is the one where they are not able to push on and take on the other side of the high ground. I'll talk about this at length in the video. But this is where the ones that doesn't quite work, because they're trying to broaden the front as they push into fillets. But this is that high ground you hear about at fillets all the time. It's up over here. And this is just showing, again, the area. This is the river following along through here. 2 bridges in and out of the town. One of the things I wanted to talk or just share, I think it's quite interesting, is you can tell the towns, even the small towns that get visited a lot, because the people there they say hi. They're not rude to you, but like they just say hi and they go about what they're doing. At these smaller towns where nobody goes, the people are like, who are you? What are you doing here? Like Damlinville, like I didn't do it. It wasn't anybody's way. They weren't rude to me. It just, I could tell they kind of gave me a look of like, what are you doing here? Because they were like kids on little bikes. I just pulled way off to the side and didn't move. It's just, it really caught them off guard. There were people that they didn't really know there, I guess. Because my plates also were German plates. So I think that made me stick out like a sore thumb in this part of Normandy, especially. Not that I got any hostile reactions or anything. It's just, I think it was more confusion than anything. Because like St. Lambert, we'll get to in a sec. nobody blatted an eye at all about me being there. I don't think anybody cared or even noticed. Here, they're like, what are you doing? Anyway, so this is the town. This river gives them issues because the Germans are bringing fire down on them as they try to go over it. So this is Falaise. This is the cathedral. Sorry, I'm gonna just Andreas says, yeah, what do you take you there? It's not really out of the way. It's not hard to get to. It's near Chambois. It's not a difficult place to get to. He takes you to Saint Lambert anyway, so it's right there. So anyway, this is the church at Falaise. Again, didn't spend too much time in Falaise because it's a city and it was busy, lots going on. All the other spots like I had to get to. Again, did a video on a little chunk of this area. There's the part of the famous statue that somehow survives the fighting, which again, I'm really not sure how it survives, but yeah, it's a little rough. They were doing some renos on the cathedral at the back side or the other side. I'm not sure what's the front and what's the back. But yeah, this statue survived the fighting somehow. No idea. But yeah, this is it. There's a museum in behind. That's why you see the gun there. There's a Sherman there as well. But yeah, this is the main square in Falaise. This, I did a whole video on this. This is Hill 262 with the poles, right? Bastard in both senses. That's funny. That's good, Terry. I like that. I'm going to steal that. Again, just a video released on this not too long ago. This is the Mace, Hill 262. This is where the poles go and hold on viciously because the German attacks are coming at the direction we're looking at, right? Looking out over the Dives Valley is in the distance there, so you can see that, and then the attacks are also coming in behind. It's in the video, covered in detail, beautiful shots, beautiful areas. I actually cover from in the valley too, which you don't see too much. Looking back up the hill, I found some good spots that you could look and see and stuff, and made some bovine friends as well at the time. Yeah, this is this is a must visit. I mean, you have to go here. I'm not sure what the distance is. It's far. It's pretty far. That's the Dives way in the distance, and then the high ground is the other side of the Dives Valley. We're on the one side, right? That's the other side. I'm not sure. I don't think it's quite 20 miles, but it's enough distance. And this is the corridor of death, as Andreas mentions here. Yeah, I've been in the museum a long time ago. I didn't go this time. I didn't go to any museums other than Juno Beach Center very briefly. And to the gift shop. I just wanted to I was there to do the battlefields, not the museums. Yeah, this is the corridor of death. This is where you would have seen the flies look like fog. It's just wild. So yeah, whole video on this. Not much here to discuss. Oh, I got the bad photo again. Chambois. So this is a keep. This is a Norman keep from just, I think, 100 years-ish after the death of William the Conqueror. This is when this one goes in. Because again, it's a push, because Chambois is near the Dives, right? This is still an important area today, and it was then. It was then in the Middle Ages, and it was in 44. You have to control that river crossing. And this is one of the areas where the Germans get shut off. The Poles get to Chambois, the Americans link up, and they're able to stop them. So this is why Saint Lambert becomes so important. But this is also why this keep is here. You can't go in. I don't know, like they might do tours, especially or something. There's nothing in there. There's nothing left on the inside. But you can, this little door here, there's a little like gate, like an iron gate. You can fit a camera through. So I got some footage in there. I'll probably just do that, a quick little video for patrons and YouTube channel members. Yeah, it's a fascinating little chunk of history here of what this tiny little area has so much going on. And I didn't show it here because I'm keeping it special for supporters for the channel on Patreon and YouTube. There's basically a relief map, so you can see the changes in elevation of the advance on this wall over to the other side. Fascinating how it's seen some better days, but it's still a cool little piece to see. Yes, it was full of pigeons. They scared the crap out of me because I wasn't paying attention. And I do believe it is the 90th that links up with the polls at Chambois, if I'm remembering correctly. I think it's the 90th. I'm pretty sure it's the 90th. And yeah, the junkyards were lots of stuff got taken for there for decades to build stuff again. Fascinating little place. Little town too, easy to get to, no problem. Same with Turn, which is just turns up the road. It was another area. The Canadians took Turn. Poles took Chambois with Americans as well. Again, this is a very famous site. Lots going on here for all kinds of reasons. This is Saint Lambert sur Dive, right? This is David Curry. The spot for the famous photo is just up there, off in the distance. That's a plaque for him and the troops fighting there. And this is just as you work your way into town. There's a platform up the hill. I have more footage than photos from there that overlooks it. It's from the Canadian Battlefield Foundation. Amazing spot. You have to stop there first before going into the town, because also you can literally see everything, and that'll be coming in the video as well. So there's the plaque. You can look at that real quick. That's what I mean. Like, people leave, like, those wreaths were still there because they're made of plastic, so they're not going to rot or anything. Those are always there. I don't know when they were put there, but so not quite. So Mossy's further down the Dive. So when you're in Mossy, looking across from where the Germans are coming, Saint Lambert will be to your right or to the north. And then the Mace is further back. So the Mace is further back and further north and east. So it's not in line with the Dive. That's just that last spot they hadn't sealed off. So that was the Poles' job, was to come in around from the north and seal it there instead of down at the Dive because of the high ground. Right? That's why they are sent there. So it's yeah. Oh no, there's footage. It's on my channel. I have 2 videos that look at Curry, because Curry gave interviews during the war. I have those presented. He talks about a whole number of things, so I just ripped out the Saint Lambert parts and paired it with the footage. There's footage, photos, testimonies. This thing is well documented, and there's footage. Yeah, there's raw footage, there's edited footage, there's cleaned up footage. It's wild. Yeah. And there's maps too, Terry, in the videos as well that give a layout of everything, particularly with the 262. It shows where it is and why it is. And I talk about also how 4th gets involved. So yeah, this is basically Curry's standing rightfully around here as the photo is taken, as the POWs who are not trying to surrender think the town is in German hands. SS troops, and lots of stories of how arrogant they could be. Get taken prisoner without really their wanting to be taken. They have the guns on them. You can see it in the footage. There's a Bren, and Curry's got a Webley pointed at him. So they didn't really have much of a choice. So they get taken prisoner right here. And there's all kinds of stories about that said SS officer disappearing or being murdered or whatever. There's no evidence of it at all. None. Well, either way, we don't know who that guy is or where he ended up. So this is the bridge. This is, I'll get to your question in a second there, Terry. This is the bridge out of town. Like, you can see the red slash through Saint Lambert sur Dive there. This is the Dive River Bridge. This is what the fighting was all about, was to get all that hardware off this way and get out. This is what they're fighting over. This is why this is 3 days, well, 2.5-ish of very hard fighting. All day, all night, nonstop. Confusion. We're not even really sure of we know broadly how the events go. We're not really sure exactly what is done at what exact time, right? Because this thing has been looked at every which way. Like, we know they push into town, they get halfway in. They're trying to fight for the bridge. They get pushed back again. We're not sure. And then there's discussions. I talk about this in the video I'm working on it, of another bridge that sees intense fighting, because the Dive has a crazy course. It goes in multiple ways. It adds to all kinds of confusion and fighting and all that stuff. So it's wild. So yeah, it's just another view. This is the high ground the Germans are coming in on. I walked all up in this area. I walked around. I was in Saint Lambert for hours. Didn't feel like it. It was amazing. It's a great little town. There was a bike race in town while I was there. It was interesting to watch. I had no idea that it was happening. So this is the church, which is not currently used. There's a project to get it fixed. As far as I could tell, I don't know if it's still an ongoing project. The information looked old. But yeah, this is a central part of the fighting as well, right? Because of the church steeple and all that stuff. It's part of the fighting too, and it's used as a landmarker for those who are in the fighting and to better understand it afterwards as well. And this is just another photo I took of it. It had been rebuilt after the war because the steeple was destroyed completely. I'm pretty sure. But yeah. This is kind of on the outskirts. I was literally wandering. I just took some random roads and see where I ended up. I have no idea what this is. Not a clue. It's got like a oven thing near it. It's near the cavalry of the town. If you can find it on Google Maps, and you know better than me, I'd love to hear what this was. Or I think it might have been just a house. I have no idea. Farm, barn, maybe. I have no idea. It looks like a stove or an oven at some point. No idea. Look cool though. Yeah, so this is the main road. So, I mean, it's salt kiln. Oh, okay. Interesting. Cool. Where'd the salt come from? They bring it in from the channel? Interesting. Digression. Rabbit hole. Anyway, so I like to, when I do this stuff mentally myself, I like to think of it and divide it in my way in my head. So, Saint Lambert, not a tiny, tiny place. It's not a big place at all. So, but it is kind of divided. There's like two main parts. So this is where the attack comes in. Curry like literally talks about how he comes up to this rise here and has to look down into the town to see what's going on because he does the recce himself. And he's up here. So this is the first part of town. This is where they push their way in, and then they get pushed out. So they get pushed back here from where the church is. And I'll cover this all extreme detail in the video with maps and discussions and all that good stuff. So we have moved completely on. This is typically where the story ends, right? The pocket is sealed, it's over. Right? The fighting in Normandy is done. And then they race to the frontiers, right? Not so much here at all. So this is Elbeuf, town on the Seine. This is where Canadian troops cross. A good number of them cross at Elbeuf. I did a bit now and then short with this of the church, and there's some troops from the Rileys in the street just walking along. So it's cool. It's very hilly in this area, like extremely hilly. So it was hard to get lots of good photos and stuff. But this is Elbeuf on the Seine. They're still fighting here at the Fleuret de Lande. You can see some of the war damage on the church itself, or what I'm assuming is war damage. Interesting. I thought so at first too. It was okay. It's not the best town, I'll say that much. I don't want to disparage it, but it's not the best town I've been to, I'll say that much. And I don't come from the best towns myself, so I'm not judging. There's much nicer areas in this part of Normandy as well. I was not as impressed with Elbeuf as I thought I was going to be. But these buildings were there during the war too, so that's cool. So this is some damage to the church, like I said. Yes, and I'm currently working on that video right now, because that is, I think, literally the first place I stopped after getting the rental car from Paris at Charles de Gaulle and drove my way here. I stopped at Fleuret de Lande first, I think, or Elbeuf first, maybe. It doesn't matter. I'm working on a video of that. It's intense. The War Diary is intense. Looking at it it's the South Saskatchewan regiment that I'll focus on for that one, because they were in the area I was in, because I went to that area thinking it was roughly close to where the fighting was. I was wrong. It's exactly where the fighting was. And you'll see why it's so difficult if you haven't seen it before, of why it's such a difficult place to fight. Hoping to get that video done shortly. So this is Rouen. This is the Seine. This is the bridge. I just did a video on this the other day, just released the other day. Or it might have been yesterday. I can't remember anymore. I think it was yesterday. So this is the spot. This was the only bridge at the time that was still available for the Germans to get across. Getting across the Seine to get out. And this place turns into another. It's literally, I can't remember who says it. It might be from the historical section. I can't remember exactly, but someone calls it a second Falaise pocket. And if you've seen the photos I included in the video, I think you'll see why they think that. This whole area was chocked full of vehicles and destruction, and the buildings are walloped. And I think this is why this area is so wide now. It's a lovely little river walk, actually. You can see the cruise boats up over there. I think that's why. It's just completely walloped. And this is a high ground in the distance as well, which I highlight in the video. This is from another bridge, I think that goes in much later. This bridge up here is the Joan of Arc bridge, which was apparently the only bridge at the time. They threw her ashes off the bridge after killing her. No, this is the Seine, James. This is not the Orne. This is the Seine. This is, again, yeah. Sorry. Oh, where to go? Yes, here it is. Kevin's point here is, yeah, they assumed this is where they'd stand. And they some points they did, like Floret-Toulon, they did. Kind of a rear guard type action, but a little more because they're staying there a little longer than a rear guard would. But no, they are just trying to get a dodge here. They don't make a stand at the Seine. Originally, this is where Monty wanted the pocket to develop, was the Seine, because it would have been bigger, right? But it doesn't happen that way. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I didn't get into that because I had so much to do, but I just talk about the bridge because you can see it from the spot where I took those photos. But yeah, Rouen was very nice, actually. Yeah, it's got some new modern buildings that aren't so great, but I found it was fascinating. Again, this was the area that was clogged full of vehicles. Why you can't really get a good but now and then photo from here because it had changed so much. But yeah. Yeah, it's wild, right? You're like, Andres is right here. How you have from the fall of Paris to Antwerp is 10 days, which is absolutely wild, especially when you get into this stuff. When you look into it, how hard some of the fighting is that some of the units run into along this end. It's absolutely wild. So there you can see the church. That survives the fighting, pretty much intact. Yeah, there's footage of it. It's pretty much intact. You got the river cruises there now, which is interesting. So yeah, Rouen is known for the medieval stuff more than the Second World War stuff. Beautiful area, though. So this is Le Combe Cemetery, the German cemetery. Someone was asking earlier if my views had changed on anything. I had been to Normandy before. A lot of you know that. At first, when I went to Le Combe, I you know, not that's a different. Sorry, I'm going back because we're on a delay here. There's two different churches in Rouen. I spent way longer than I should have looking at the map. This is the one. This is closer to the river. There's one closer to the river, and then there's a cathedral further back with two. I thought the same. I double checked. There's two of them. But yeah, they're working on it there. But yeah, there's two different ones. It's confusing. Anyway. So moving on. So back to Le Combe, the German cemetery in Normandy, one of them. This is the one that's closer to what you can say the American side, right? Closer to Omaha Beach. This was an interesting piece because it's got the poppy on it. It's got the poppy on it, the cornflower for the Germans, and the blue flower for the French that is escaping me at the moment. So it's an effort of reconciliation, which I am starting to obviously appreciate it before, but more and more now, knowing just how much of a waste this war truly was, and the people it dragged into it. I mean, a lot of people went willingly into it and were willingly nasty and willingly awful, but a lot of people were not. So it's a fascinating little piece. And then this was in the little area when you enter in. Oh yeah, here it is here. So it's poppy, cornflower, and the forget-me-not. That's it. So it's the three major ones, right, for the reconciliation of the dead. And there's been some major, like, political, literal reconciliation at this cemetery, right, with the French and German leaders. I don't remember who it was at the time. It was in the 70s, I believe, 60s or 70s. As part of that whole, European Union thing, which is a good thing. Very good thing. So I'll give you one guess whose grave those people are standing around. So that was the thing that really upset me the most. So I got there roughly around, because I saw their boss. They were an English tour group, not disparaging the English. But because I could hear the accents as well. It's Whitman's grave. This is the only spot they went to. They walked directly to Whitman's grave. They stood there. I assume the tour guide gave the same old, about whatever, he's the greatest guy of all time and blah, 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 blah. We took him down, blah, 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 blah. They slowly, some of them booked it right out of there. Moved fast out of there. And then some of them stopped and looked at some other graves because they walked along this path here, because you can get out of the cemetery this way as well, over the berm, into the parking lot, got on the bus, left. They were there for 10 minutes, if that. So that pissed me off. Rightfully, right out, pissed me off, because there's more going on here. This is an important place for all kinds of reasons. Yes, there are tons of shitbags. We're an hour and a half in. I'm not going to get dinged for anything saying it. There are tons of shitbags buried here, murderers and awful SS and all that stuff. But there are other stories here. There's things to take in, things to reflect on, and they are just doing the same old Villers-Bocage bullshit. Which is funny, because that barely even gets mentioned in the 7th Armored Division's history that they put together themselves. But anyway, that's all that gets discussed. These were English. These were like English. Like, it was like stereotypically English. It was wild. Thank you, Kevin, for becoming a member. That's greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Wait, is your picture? Oh God, is that Herbie? That's awesome. Yeah, that's Herbie. Anyway, very distracted. So sorry. Anyway, no, I don't remember off the top of my head. The tour name company was on the bus. I was just kind of pissed off at that point. So at this point, I was like, I've been upset before because this has become a Nazi pilgrimage, right? Whitman's grave, it wasn't at the time. See if I can find it here. So this is another shot. I'll come back. I didn't include it. Anyway, Whitman's grave was empty, like there was nothing on it. The grass is completely destroyed around it. It happens in other spots too, but I think that's just from trees literally blocking it. Whitman's is like just dirt, because that's the only place people go. People go to the big monument, or they go to Whitman, and then that's it. So at that point, I said to myself, because I wasn't going to do this. This was my last day. I hadn't done some of the points where the bigger murders had taken place. So, I mean, credit economy I'm doing on this day. But I took extra time here. I purposely took extra time at this point. So that really is where it comes off, where the major changes I kind of had by thinking of this place. And then I got angry too about why this place needed to exist in the first place. This war did not need to happen. It's just such a waste, and there's so many young men and people buried here and across Normandy. It just really started to hit me of how stupid this all was, and it's just drives me crazy. And this place is so stark in a kind of a stereotypical German manner, which I think somebody mentioned on here a few minutes ago that Woody did a show on this. I can't remember the presenter's name. It was done fantastic. Anyway, so Woody at World War II TV has something on this. It didn't exactly always look like that. It was different. They changed it. The landscaping was different at the time. It's gone through a process of change in a lot of ways. Also, the day I was there was obviously overcast. That doesn't help. It brings the mood down as it does. But yeah, it's definitely worth a visit as well, other than the 2 SS known shitbags buried there. But yeah, a very stark place. I tried to get a kind of a good photo that cropped out that huge group and kind of taking it all in and everything. I wanted the whole thing. Yeah, it's definitely worth looking at. Yeah, here's a better photo, and then the memorial in the middle. Yeah, it's a lot to take in. There were other people there. They were being completely respectful and looking around, and it's just those tour groups, right? They just give the same old, and that's because that's all people want, and it was a bit much. And some of these visitors, they were speaking multiple different languages. I heard Spanish as well. It might have been Portuguese, but I think it was Spanish. So it was very interesting to see the different people in here. So like my thinking has changed in a little ways. Like, I used to think it was just here was glorifying Nazis and everyone else kind of forgot going on there. It's not that. It's more than that, and it's a spot of reconciliation, which is extremely important. I do have some issues with some of the wording. Andreas mentions the visitor center, which was closed. I was there on it was like a Sunday late afternoon or something. It was closed by that point. It closed like mid-afternoon or something. It is worth going into. I mean, just some of the language choices. They do talk about the SS in the center, but I took some other photos. If you just read those, like if you didn't go in there, it's not dismissing anything. It's not what I'm saying. It just presents the language as in like, oh, war is bad for everybody, which clearly is. And you all know that I say that all the time. But it's like, oh, it's just the Germany got sucked into it too. And I'm like, well, that's not how that happened, right? Not everybody even buried in this place where that plaque was got sucked into this. There are lots of SS buried here who were hardcore Nazis who were very much wanting this to happen, right? So like they don't really say that in there, but again, it's in the visitor center. They talk about, I think the Isaac group even gets discussed in there, if I'm remembering correctly. I was there just like it had literally just opened when I was there in 2014. So it's an interesting place. It's a definite go to, and be respectful in there. It's not like I saw anybody being disrespectful other than the group just running in, running out. And yeah, I've been to that one as well, near Vimy Ridge. Nouvelle Saint Vaast. It's so stark and it's massive. It's bigger than this. I think the number of bodies buried than Le Combe. It's mass grave. It's just mostly mass graves at Nouvelle Saint Vaast. Wild. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot to take in, and that's one of the things I kind of spent some time thinking about there, and what the reconciliation means, particularly to the people of Western Europe. I'm not a Western European. Well, I am obviously, but, genetically grew up in Canada. But what that means and what Europe is today and what it's overcome and all that fighting for so long when it just was not needed to be that way and living the way they do now. It's fantastic. And it's just a lot of things thinking like that of this is what it should be, not, this, this is what it should be. So anyway, yeah, it's a lot to think about, and it was a long trip for me and did a lot, and a lot going on. So that's kind of one thing I'm still just trying to wrap my head around and still thinking about and all that stuff. But it's a lot of emotion in this places. And I went to a lot of cemeteries, not just this one. I went to a ton of them. I went to both Canadian major ones, some of the smaller British ones, Bayeux, all kinds of stuff. So anyway, so that's kind of my wrap up, trying to give stop point, because I wanted to give kind of some thoughts and talk about some stuff that doesn't get talked about. I didn't get all the videos done. I was hoping to have them all done now. Like this would have been the end, right? Because this is where this really kind of, I think it's just made from dirt from an excavation, I do believe, from the memorial there, because it was an American cemetery first, actually. Anyway, Paul, Guess with Woody talks about all of it. You can check that out. It gives you the details better than I can. So anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I was hoping to have everything done by now, right? Because this is now 1st of September. 80 years ago today, this is really where even the Canadians and everybody's across the Seine now, and they're going to start pushing to the German frontier. I was hoping to have everything done. Clearly didn't do that. Things get in the way, and the summer's been interesting for me in many ways. Some good, some bad. Anyway, yeah, so it's a lot. Normandy is a must visit. Interesting. Second World War, it's a must visit if you just want to visit France. People go there. They do. They only spend a little bit of time there. I say it's not enough. yeah, it's definitely worth visiting. So moving forward, I'm going to try and kind of, I don't know what the word is, like really put more into the videos and make them like bigger. Some of them I wanted to get out because I just wanted to show people, right? Like the Rouen one is very short. I didn't have, oh, it is. Yeah, there is burials. Sorry, I'm also getting tired. Yes, there is, because they're marked at the base. That's right. But anyway, watch the one show with Woody. It's fantastic, and very well researched. Again, doing better than anything that I can do for this one. This is, of course, not my specialty, but I hope to do more digging on it shortly. Anyway, so I hope to do some bigger stuff. I'm working on some little smaller ones I do want to get out because they talk about Florette de Lande. I literally checked on YouTube. There are no videos talking about the fighting at Florette de Lande. And I was literally right there where the South Sass were fighting. It was, now thinking back on it, it was quite striking to be in that spot, literally where they come under fire. Absolutely wild. Anyway, so I'm going to finish those up. And then I'm going to shift, going way back. I'm going to shift to Breadville. That's going to be my big one because you have the fighting in Breadville itself, those actions I was talking about outside the town, all that good stuff. So there'll be more coming. It's going to probably have to slow down quite a bit just because there's a lot going on in terms of making those videos and how I want to do it. I've got most of the primary stuff nailed down, like maps and the photos and which parts of the story I can tell with which narratives and that kind of thing. I've been working on that one for like a month now, maybe longer. I think it's 6 weeks, something like that. Anyway, so yeah, I've been digging on that one. Also trying to get some SS records on that as well, because I want to see if I can find anything on Breadville. Because I know Sean Claxton had him on the channel, had dug on this because he wrote a book on it, right? So had him on talking about it. So I want to dig in that a little bit. And obviously I don't speak German, but the online translators. Well, there's more to see than trees, but you just have to. This isn't everything. I didn't show everything. I share most of it in the videos or with patrons. This is this is like a quarter, not even a quarter. It's like 1/10 of the photos I took. So anyway, so I'm going to organize some more like live streams. I'm going to try and get some of the more of those done out. All that good stuff. So we'll see. Output, I'm going to try and shift focus a little bit away from some Normandy stuff. It's been a while. That's all I've been doing. I did a really short one on some kamikazes that I found a fantastic primary documentary on account of it from Spruance, who was on his flagship when I got hit by a kamikaze. Wild. Anyway, so I'm working on stuff on Peleliu, actually. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, Florette de Lande. Yeah, it's mostly true. Well, there's a little bit there, and I'll get into it in the video. You'll see what I'm talking about. But there's more there. There's a railway junction, actually, that causes the Canadians all kinds of problems. Anyway, and it's a hiking trail now. It's beautiful. Anyway, so yeah. So if you're not already, please consider becoming a patron or YouTube channel member. That would be gratefully helpful. I've had a lot of help in that area, at least recently, which is good. I need to keep that going to keep this moving. Just again, as always, still lots of things are really up in the air for me right now. I thought things were settling down. That blew up. That opportunity has seemingly disappeared overnight. I don't know what happened. So whatever, we'll just keep moving. But yeah, so if you can support, that'd be great. So thank you for the new member today. And Roderick from a couple days ago. No, I've never been to Bastogne. I have been to Belgium, but not that part, other parts. But yeah, I have found in some stuff on, I was listening to a bit of theirs, but I want to really give it a good listen. I've been so fascinated by Peleliu ever since really learning about it from Eugene Sledge's book. So it's just stuck in my brain. I don't know why, but it just is. Oh, yeah, I guess I can take some questions if you guys have them. Probably going to get the dog outside soon, but I have no idea. I don't know what they're working on. I don't work with them anymore. Couldn't tell you. I ran into them in late March, and they were going for the 80th. I have no idea what they did. No, not a clue. Nope, no idea. Yes, and they brought in the army into Peleliu as well. Oh, you live in Ottawa. I can't say for sure, but weekdays, pretty much it's volunteer run, right? So as long as they can get somebody to come in, they can. I mean, I don't know what part of Ottawa you live in, but I don't live far, so it's not a big deal for me. But and it's usually up on the weekends too, right? Because they get busier on the weekends. I don't know about this time of year, maybe less, maybe more. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. But every like weekday, I've been there in the last 2 months, and I've been there a couple of times. It's been open, so very cool. Oh, Vanier. Well, that's not far. Just take the highway. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I got some other stuff on the go, so hopefully we'll be okay. Sacking Kitchen, 4th Armored Commander. I have the book under a bunch of stuff right now. The sacking wasn't just for not helping the polls. There was more to it than that. I've talked about this before. Simmons and Kitchen were friends. I'm not really sure that they actually were. I haven't found anything that says that definitively, aka either of them saying that. It's said in primary sources, secondary sources, like the 4th Armored book. But I can't find it. I can't find anything that definitively says that they're like buddy. So I think it's his supposed performance. I can still think that Simmons did him dirty and didn't support him like he could have. In many of the ways, particularly with closing the gap, to me that was a big mess, because Simmons had been the gap was not closed. Simmons was now focused on the push to the Sen. So to me, that's a bit of a mess. So it's not just that. It has to do things with total eyes and tractable and all that stuff. So it's deep, and it's a fascinating subject. But again, it's one of those niche Canadian things that nobody else wants to talk about. So it doesn't get discussed because there's no way to make any money off of it, unfortunately, unless somebody's doing a master's thesis. But there's many of those nowadays. Yes, well, I do. I network with everybody, and it has not worked out for me, unfortunately, as much as I would like. Not recently, but I'm going to go back in there. I'm going to see what I can find. The War Diary is a bit sparse, as you know, Kevin, but not everybody does. But I'll see what I can find. I found some like very brief oral history stuff on this. Very, very brief. But then getting to the ground again recently, it's giving me a different perspective of how I want to go about telling that story, if that makes any sense, because there's just so much there. But yeah, I'm going to see what I can find. There's always pieces that get hidden or they're in the box they shouldn't be in, particularly, up a level, right? Brigade and division and stuff like that. So we shall see. Yes, it's incredibly complex, incredibly so. I had Jenny Grant on a long time ago, 2 years ago now, I think, 2 summers ago, talking about the polls. So you can probably check that out if you haven't seen that. But yeah, it's a fascinating dynamic. I mean, Caravaggio, who's the author of the 4th Div, it's not official, but the 4th Div book that everybody uses, I don't think he's a historian anymore. I couldn't find his contact info. So I don't know. But yeah, I mean, who knows? But we'll see what I might be able to come up with on that. Let me get my hands on officer report on 3rd anti-tank DHH report. I've never been able to track down. No, I could also go to DHH. I know people there too, especially with the summer being over. Probably easier to get into DHH. If you could send me a message, Kevin, about that, that would be fantastic, and then I can get that to you if I find it. I don't see why I wouldn't be able to. Okay, just another minute or two, and then I got to run. But yeah, I mean, me too. I mean, I love this stuff. I was thinking about all these little niche things that I'm looking at, and these small little actions. And if it was almost any other country, it would get more attention. But so is the Canadian lot. I'd love to do more on this stuff, but some of it I know it's just not going to get any attention, and it's just still got to pay the bills. So I wish I had some eccentric, distant relative who would give me money, but such is life. So yeah. So anyway, if you can support the channel any way you can, thank you. Watching the recent videos would be very helpful. I've linked the Canada in Normandy playlist down below. You can watch some videos afterwards, leaving some comments and likes and all that good stuff is very helpful. Yeah, so stay tuned. I don't have anything scheduled for anything right now. I've got some stuff up in the air, like I said. We'll see where stuff lands, especially this round. And then we can go from there. But again, the more supporters I have, the better we do. The better we can do here, the more we can do. I know a lot of you already are, and it's preaching to the converted. But anybody else who's watching this afterwards or coming on later or whatever, or friend, you can talk to anybody into it. That would be great. And support, even just watching the videos is helpful too while playing the ads, right? Anyway, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I know it's getting late, especially in Europe. So enjoy the rest of your Sunday. For those of us who've got the tomorrow off, well, I don't, but I don't really have any day off. But enjoy your Labor Day, your long weekend, and your summer. And other than that, I'll see everybody next time. Hopefully that will be soon. Thanks, everyone, for coming and hanging out and hearing me talk about this stuff. I'll see everybody next time. Bye, everybody.